You don't make a scene, you don't slam doors or burn bridges. When you finally leave, it's quiet, calm, but absolute. As an INFJ, your goodbye isn't about drama, it's about survival. Most people don't even realize what's happening. They think you're still there, still holding on, but emotionally you already left a long time ago. You gave the silent warnings, you dimmed your light to see if they'd notice. And when they didn't, you knew. Walking away wasn't easy. You wrestled with guilt, overthinking, and the hope that maybe they'd finally understand. But they never did, so you let go. Not with anger, but with finality. And when you return to the world, you're not the same. Because being forced to walk away from something you once nurtured changes you, and the version of you that gave endlessly, they don't get to meet them again. You gave silent warnings before leaving, but no one took them seriously. You didn't just disappear one day out of nowhere. Long before you left, you gave quiet signals, less eye contact, slower responses, fewer words, more emotional distance. As an INFJ, you communicate deeply, but when you're hurt, your silence becomes your last form of honesty. You hoped they'd notice the shift, the pullback, the quiet pauses, the way your energy changed, but they didn't. They thought your calm meant you were okay. They mistook your stillness for patience, not realizing it was the calm before you detached completely. You weren't trying to be mysterious or passive-aggressive. You were hoping, even in silence, they would care enough to ask what was wrong, but they didn't. And in that quiet neglect, you got your answer. So when you left, it wasn't a surprise to you. It was the final step in a journey they ignored from the very beginning. You detached emotionally long before you physically walked away. Long before anyone noticed your absence, you were already gone on the inside. As an INFJ, you don't make sudden decisions. You feel your way out long before you move your feet. You stayed, hoping things would change, hoping they'd finally meet you where you were. But each missed opportunity, each moment of emotional neglect, chipped away at your connection. Eventually, you stopped dreaming of a future with them. You stopped feeling safe. You stopped letting yourself hope. You smiled, showed up, played your part, but inside, something had already shut down. Your heart had begun grieving a bond that still existed in name but not in truth. So by the time you physically left, it wasn't a dramatic exit. It was a quiet confirmation of what had already died inside you. And that's what people don't understand. You don't leave all at once. You let go in layers until there's nothing left to hold on to. You stayed through confusion and pain until clarity became your only way out. You tried to make sense of it all. The mixed signals, the emotional distance, the constant feeling that something wasn't right. You stayed through the confusion, hoping it was just a phase, convincing yourself that maybe it was you, not them. But deep down, you felt the slow unraveling. As an INFJ, you don't give up easily. You overanalyze, you empathize, you try to fix things even when it's breaking you. And that's exactly what you did, until the pain no longer felt like love and the silence started to feel like your answer. Clarity didn't come in one big moment, it came quietly in all the ways you felt alone, even when they were right next to you. And when that clarity finally arrived, it didn't feel like anger, it felt like peace, because you finally understood staying any longer would mean losing yourself. And that's when you knew it was time to walk away. You stopped sharing your thoughts because they stopped listening. You used to open up carefully, vulnerably, hoping they'd understand the depth behind your words, but over time, you noticed the subtle shifts, the distracted glances, the half-hearted replies, the way your emotions were brushed off like they were too much. So you pulled back. As an INFJ, your thoughts aren't surface level, they're layered, introspective, and hard to express. Sharing them takes trust, but when that trust is met with indifference, it chips away at your willingness to speak. You stopped explaining your fears, your dreams, your doubts, not out of spite, but because it became clear they weren't really listening. And it's not that you didn't have more to say, you just learned that your silence protected your peace more than wasted words ever could. You didn't leave to hurt them, you left to finally protect yourself. You weren't trying to prove a point or get even. You left because staying meant losing yourself a little more every day. As an INFJ, you give deeply, your time, your empathy, your heart. But somewhere along the way, you realized the relationship was one-sided. Your needs were ignored, your boundaries crossed, your energy drained. You didn't want drama. You didn't want revenge, you just wanted peace, something that felt increasingly impossible while staying connected to someone who couldn't see or value you. So you walked away, not out of anger, but as an act of self-respect. It wasn't about hurting them, it was about finally choosing yourself. Your absence said everything your words never could. You didn't need a final conversation or a dramatic exit. Your absence spoke volumes. It said, I tried. It said, I waited. It said, I won't stay where I'm not seen. As an INFJ, you've always communicated more through energy than words. And when you leave, your silence carries all the emotion you held back for too long. The people who missed the signs, the hesitation in your voice, the distance in your eyes, the quiet pullback, now feel the weight of what's no longer there. Your absence became the loudest truth, because when an INFJ walks away, the message isn't spoken, it's felt. You mourned the relationship while still in it, so the ending felt like relief. You grieved them long before they even noticed something was wrong. While they thought everything was fine, you were mourning the connection that was already dying inside you. As an INFJ, you feel everything deeply, so the moment you sensed it was no longer safe to stay emotionally open, you began to detach quietly. You cried in silence, replayed memories, tried to make sense of how something once meaningful had turned so empty. And by the time you finally walked away, there were no more tears left. You weren't cold, you were just done. The ending didn't crush you, it freed you, because you had already lived the loss while still showing up every day. So when you left, it wasn't a breakup, it was a release. You outgrew the version of yourself who tolerated being unseen. You didn't just walk away from them, you walked away from the part of you that kept shrinking to be accepted, the version of you that stayed quiet to avoid conflict, that downplayed your needs to keep the peace, that tried to earn love by being easy to love. As an INFJ, your growth doesn't come from loud rebellion, it comes from subtle, powerful transformation. You realized that being unseen was no longer something you were willing to tolerate. You stopped bending to fit into spaces that didn't value your presence. You stopped justifying your depth to people who only understood surfaces. And with that, you began to evolve, not to prove anything, but to honor the parts of you that had been silenced for too long. Walking away wasn't about them. It was about finally showing up for yourself. You don't come back the same because breaking changed your boundaries. You may forgive, you may even reconnect, but you'll never return as the same version of yourself they once knew, because something inside you broke, and from that break, new boundaries were born. As an INFJ, you used to give unlimited chances, explain yourself endlessly, hope for change, even when it cost your peace. But now, you've learned. You no longer abandon yourself to stay connected. You no longer sacrifice your emotional safety just to keep the relationship alive. When you come back, if you come back, it's with stronger limits, deeper self-respect, and a quiet distance that wasn't there before. You still care, but you care differently. Your love remains deep, but it's no longer naive. And that shift, it changes everything, because once your boundaries are rebuilt from pain, they don't bend the way they used to. You still care, but now from a distance that keeps you safe. You didn't stop caring, you just stopped sacrificing yourself in the name of care. You still think about them sometimes, you still wonder if they're okay, but now you care from a distance that protects your peace. As an INFJ, your empathy runs deep, even after everything, but you've learned that closeness without respect drains you, that being available to the wrong energy only reopens wounds you worked hard to heal. So you stopped showing up in the same way, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You've outgrown the version of you who accepted crumbs just to feel needed. Now, you love with boundaries, you care without losing yourself, and even if they don't understand that shift, you do. Because caring from afar doesn't mean your heart has closed. It means it's finally protected. If you've ever walked away quietly, still caring, still feeling, but no longer willing to lose yourself, this space is for you. As an INFJ, your silent strength speaks louder than words. So if this resonated, subscribe and stay connected. You're not alone in how deeply you feel or how fiercely you protect your peace.